Hey everybody, it's Bryan, your friendly neighborhood reviewer, and I am here today actually this is my 25th episode, I think it is. So I kind of decided to do with every 25th episode I crank out these things. I say crank out because I'm slowly getting it together. But I think for every 25th episode, I'm going to do like a topic theme kind of thing. So I was thinking about what I could do just off the top of my head. And I thought, well, shoot, maybe I should just do my top 20, 25 albums, something like that. So that's what I'm going to do today. So today's theme is my top 25 list of my favorite albums. You know how it is. I mean, if you sit down, seriously, if you try to do this one day, all the record albums that you've listened to over the course of your lifetime, and see which ones have really influenced you the most or really that stuck with you all these years. There's some albums that stick closer to a person than others. Of course, a lot of stuff is personal feeling, things like that. But it's interesting to see everyone's different picks of things. So I thought of this as a theme because I might as well tell you my favorite albums. But I couldn't think exactly how to do it because there's so many great albums out there. I thought, well, should I just get a random list and stuff? But I'm like, nah. So what I decided to do is I'm going to do my top 25 favorite classic rock albums. Now, to me, there's a distinct difference between the classic rock period and the modern rock period. Very few things like this happen in someone's lifetime, where an actual song or a band comes along and totally changes the landscape of music. Okay, so when I first heard Nirvana, Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I heard that on the radio, and I thought, well, that is definitely different. I've never heard anything like that before. That song totally changed the landscape of everything. It ushered in the grunge era, the Seattle scene and all that. So when that came in, everything from 1990 backwards became regulated to classic rock. At the time in the 80s, a lot of major bands and major classic recording artists were making big comeback albums. You had the Grateful Dead with In the Dark, and Touch of Grey was a huge hit for them. You had George Harrison's Cloud 9 was released before 1990, I think 86, 87, something like that. Had his number one hit, Got My Mind Set on You, a big album for him. Fleetwood Mac had Tango in the Night, a huge album for them, even though Stevie Nicks was not in the best of shape at the time, bless her heart. But a great album, nonetheless, great album. And then you had other, Jethro Tull with The Crest of a Knave, Farm on the Freeway, another big hit. Yes, we're still going strong with Big Generator. You had all these, Tom Petty, all these great, Bruce Springsteen, all these great artists from the 80s, even the LA party scene, Motley Crue and Poison and all that group of love them or hate them. So that's where I divide classic rock and modern rock when Nirvana hit. So this is the classic rock era. Anything, I would say, from 1955 when rock music really hit to 1989, just before 1990. That's the era I'm talking about. So with that in mind, and then later on I'll do a 25 modern rock albums. We'll do like that. So with that in mind, there's not going to be any really metal albums. I'm going to do probably a separate metal list. There's not going to be any rap albums. There's not going to be any jazz or classical, anything like that. Those are specific genre albums. So this is just basically mainstream pop rock kind of stuff, okay? So with that, I've got my list right here. So I've got to have a list, But we're going to start off with the artists that really got me into collecting records anyway. Number 25, I have to do Prince with Purple Rain from, I think it was 1984, I think it was, something like that, or 83. But, what can you say? It's the album that blew him to the stratosphere. It combined R&B, funk, and rock, the Minneapolis sound that nobody had heard quite like that. Rick James had done stuff like that. There'd been similar experiments with stuff like that between R&B and rock kind of thing. Of course, Michael Jackson was actually coming up the same way as Prince in the 80s as a huge celebrity star that he was. So, but all that was going on at the time. So, absolutely, I have to have Purple Rain. That, me and my brother Kevin Scott, we collected records starting with the Minneapolis sound. So we got into, Purple Rain, Wendy and Lisa, The Time, Apollonia, Vanity Six, all those Sheila E., all those great, amazing musicians. But definitely, number 25, I have to include Purple Rain. I have to include Prince. Which brings me to an artist that Prince himself champions, and this specific album he championed. number 24, I have to include Joni Mitchell. I just did a review of Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, which is a classic masterpiece from her, and one of the an amazing double album. I toyed with putting that on here, but I love Hissing of Summer Lawns. This was the album the transition album between Court and Spark, which was her big hits, Help Me and all that, and then Hejira. And then it went full bloom into that art, that more jazz folky stuff she did, really intricate and lyrically, advanced and everything. So Hissing of Summer Lawns is a wild album. There is so much cool stuff, jazz and world music and almost a Gregorian chant, almost with the shadows and light. I mean, wild album. You've got to hear that album. Amazing. It takes a few listens to get a really good handle on it, but it's a lot of pop songs. It has in France The Kiss on Main Street, which was a hit for her, top 40 hit, I think. So a great album. Definitely awesome album. I have to have Joni Mitchell. How can you not? So let's see. My 23, this is 23. My 23 favorite album right now, at this time period, I should say. I have to include this, Montrose. Now, I'm going to do a review on this album. I might have some special guests for, review on this album. But, oh my gosh, this is recent for me because I didn't know this album. I knew Bad Motor Scooter, I'd heard that, and I'd heard Rock Candy, which are Zeppelin songs by, oh man, especially Rock Candy, man. That's like, awesome. But man, when I got this album, I was so floored, absolutely floored by this album. Sammy Hagar, his first album, Ronnie Montrose, who'd been with Edgar Winter Group, and every single track, only 8 tracks, and every dang one of them is a killer. This is a heck of a banger of an album. But anyway, that's definitely number 23. I had to put that on the list. All right, so, of course, number 22, Queen. I have to have Queen on here. And you might be surprised if some hardcore fans would choose their first couple albums maybe, or, maybe Night at the Opera or Day at the Race or something like that. But I can't help it. I love The Game. 1980s Game. I love that album. Just for one song in particular, but the whole album, absolutely. But Need Your Love Tonight. It's one of my favorite songs, probably my favorite song of theirs of all time. I love that song. It is a killer rock song. But Rocket Prime Jive, coming soon, another favorite of mine. Oh my gosh, that's one of my absolute favorite ones too. There's so many great songs in this album that I love. Dragon Attack. Even the ones I hear to death. Another one, Bites the Dust. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Some of those songs, I mean, yeah, you hear them over and over again, but they still stand up. But, Sail Away, Sweet Sister, gosh, Save Me. I mean, just a killer album. Play the Game. Wow. Yeah, whatever. Great album. Then, let's see, number 21. I had to choose an ELO album, Electric Light Orchestra, because I love ELO. Jeff Lynne is still underrated as an artist, incredibly underrated as a vocalist. What can you say? I was tempted because there's like 3 or 4 other albums that are just, when I grew up, my brother roller skated a lot, and over at the roller skating rink, they would play a lot of Discovery at the time. Last Train to London, Shine a Little Love, Don't Bring Me Down, all that. So I was tempted to pick that, but of all the albums that stuck with me, El Dorado's always stuck with me the most. And I'm a big double album person. I love Out of the Blue. And I was tempted to do that one too. And New World Record as well. But El Dorado, there's something about El Dorado. It's just such a beautiful album. The way it's recorded, the way the orchestra is done, his singing on the title track is absolutely his best singing I think I've ever heard. And it's got Mr. Kingdom on it, which is one of my favorite ELO songs of all time. So, and it's the rockers, man. Poor Boy, Laredo Tornado, Boy Blue. It's just one killer rocker. I can't get it out of my head. If that don't sell it to you, if that doesn't sell the album to you, I don't know what was. But so I had to do that. Number 20, I had to include this album too. The Doors, Strange Days. Now, nothing against the first album. I love the first album. Morrison Hotel is a fantastic album. Love that. I love Soft Parade even. I think Soft Parade's underrated. A little more conventional, a little more pop. Not quite as dark as some of the other stuff. But Strange Days is like, wow. That album from the opening to when the music's over is a complete piece. It's one of their clearest, most beautiful statements of kind of like the underside, the darker side of the 60s, which, was not explored that much, except by Lou Reed, of course, in the Velvet Underground, which I should have had them on here. But anyway, there's a lot of artists I left off for whatever reasons, but it just 25 records, it's hard. Wow, Strange Days. The album cover is a classic, iconic album cover. Jim Morrison never sounded better. The poetry is beautiful on it. Robbie Krieger, Ray Manzarek, gosh, these guys are still underrated. Fantastic album, and not too far behind because these guys kind of share a little bit of that dark tinge of the Doors, especially with Bryan Ferry. But Roxy Music, there's so many classics in Roxy Music, you can't go wrong. If you sample some of them and you like something like Love Is the Drug or More Than This or something like that, then you're definitely going to love their stuff because they have never done a bad album. Even at their very weakest, like Flesh and Blood, they're really good. They're just great songwriters, man. And the experimental, but their experimentation is amazing. And Andy McKay is, oh my gosh, that guy's saxophone is just incredible. Anyway, but all of them amazing. But the one that has always stuck with me and has influenced basically the entire 80s was Avalon. Avalon is such a gorgeous album, and you say gorgeous album like yeah, whatever. But I really mean this. This is a gorgeous album. It paved the way for the New Romantics, at Duran Duran, all those groups. Oh my goodness, the Fix, all those groups like that. Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, and Bryan Ferry singing, his crooning. He has a crooning style that's so cool. I don't know how he does it. At the beginning stages, it was kind of a little wild. Sometimes it got a little wild. But by the time he got to Avalon, his voice was so, oh my goodness, haunting. A haunting vocalist at the peak of his powers. These guys are just incredible. That album paved the way for the entire sound of the 80s. One of the most influential albums ever. Still more popular in Britain than they are here, but they're always catching up because they're just amazing. But number 18, all right, I have to include a Fleetwood Mac album. Now, I love Rumors, and I've heard it to death, but I love it. I love Fleetwood Mac. I love the early Fleetwood Mac. I love the Peter Green era. The first Fleetwood Mac album, classic. Then Play On, classic. That's the one that he really took blues and shot out of the stratosphere. I love the period in between when Jeremy Spencer took over for a little bit with the Kiln House. And then Danny Kirwan came into peak with Future Games, Bare Trees, and that's when Christy McVie and Bob Welch joined. And those albums are still underrated today, even by a lot of critics. And a lot of people still don't know that era of Fleetwood Mac. Oh my goodness. But the one that I was tempted to pick was Mirage, but Mirage is more of a personal favorite, though I think it's a great album. It's certainly probably the most underrated album they've done. There is not a bad song. That album is killer and a big hit. And I know this is going to bother people some. I love Tusk. Tusk is my favorite Fleetwood Mac album. Now, kudos out to Pete Pardo and Martin Popoff and all those guys at Sea of Tranquility, but I know Pete Pardo doesn't like this album too much. It's interesting, but he likes the Stevie Nicks songs and Christy McVie, but he doesn't like Lindsey Buckingham's songs, and it's a legitimate criticism. If you don't like his kind of rockabilly kind of stuff, then I can understand. And this album is that, and a whole bag of chips. It is a wild album. This production is amazing. $1 million production, famously. And the songwriting on this, again, these bands live and die by the songwriting. Fleetwood Mac is first and foremost a songwriting band. Yes, they're great vocalists. They're great instrumentalists, absolutely. They've made great albums, but they live and die with the material just like anybody else does. And these are three people at the peak of their powers. These 5 Stevie Nicks songs are the 5 best songs she had ever written. 4 of them are definitely the best. Angel, I think, might be like a little bit behind, but oh my gosh, it's a great song nonetheless. Beautiful Child, Sarah, Storms, a highly underrated song. Storms is one of my favorite songs of hers of all time. It just gives me chills when I hear it. And then Sister of the Moon just rocks, man. Angel rocks too. An underrated song, but it catches up kind of like Honey High. Christy McVie at the peak of her powers here. Over and over. I admit, over and over sounds better on the Fleetwood Mac live album, but here it's still fantastic. It's a very understated opener. Think about me, classic Christy McVie, chugging rocker, man. Love it, love it, love it. Brown Eyes, Never Make Me Cry. Oh my goodness, Never Make Me Cry. One of the most beautiful ballads of hers that is unsung. But Christy McVie, again, Honey High, underrated song. Never Forget Tonight, classic ending. And then Buckingham songs, a lot of Buckingham songs I don't have a problem with. I think they're just amazing. And the intricacies, the way he does production, like on The Ledge, where he mimics the title, where he builds up this and then it just stops like it's going to almost fall off the ledge. I love that stuff. And then Save Me a Place, the gorgeous harmonies in Save Me a Place just kills me every time. I know I'm not wrong. One of my favorite rockers of all time. My goodness, Tusk, the title track. Gosh, I love everything. I just love this album. I love this album. It is different. It is very different. It's what I always call it a splatter paint production on Tusk, and that's exactly what you get. It's like a modern art masterpiece. Love that album. But anyway, so we go to number 17, Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. One of the first albums I picked up when I started collecting, really heavy-duty collecting. I mean, Funeral for a Friend and Love Lies Bleeding to the last track, Harmony. You find me one song in there that's not a 5-star masterpiece. You can't. Even Social Disease, as a funny song, is so clever and so brilliantly written and so joyous. Oh my gosh, A Dirty Little Girl. Okay, another kind of comedy thing. Oh my gosh. But Elton can pull that shit off, man. He can pull that campy stuff off, and he does on that one. But and if those are the two weakest songs, oh my gosh, one of the greatest double albums of all time. I mean, not just Candle in the Wind and Benny the Jets, even the title track, which I still love. I just love that song. But Gray Seal, Jamaican Jerk Off, the song has no title. Sweet Painted Ladies, Danny Bailey mentions Kentucky, which I'm from. Your Sister Can't Twist, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Roy Rogers, man. I mean, oh my gosh, just All the Girls Love Alice. That is one of my absolute favorite songs of his. When I heard that song on the radio, I think QMF played it a long time ago. I heard that song, I went, damn. I mean, at first I listened to the lyrics, of course, but the melody is just, wow. But now this is cool because another favorite Elton John album that I love, the other double album, this is like the sunny side. Blue Moves is like the moony side, the darker side. I think Elton John says it's his personal favorite, and I can see why. It's killer. I still don't understand the Critical Drugs because, man, you've got Tonight and One Horse Town and Chameleon. There's a couple songs that are a little like Bite Lift goes on too long, and then I think Boogie Pilgrim's kind of silly, but oh my goodness, check that album out. Not as consistent as Goodbye, but definitely recommendable. But those two albums, but Goodbye, you gotta have that. You gotta have it. Number 16, yeah, love this guy, man. Not for everyone's taste because his lyrics are really dirty, although he did it really to just poking fun at conventionals and all that. But Frank Zappa, I gotta have Frank Zappa. I've been a Zappa fan ever since I heard Tinseltown Rebellion. That was the first. Well, actually, I'll take that back. The first Zappa song I ever heard was Trouble Coming Every Day, played on Dr. Demento's show in the 80s. And I heard that, and I thought, wow, that's cool. Because it's like this, it sounded like something from the 60s, but it sounded like heavy metal. For a 60s track, man, that's like freaking heavy metal. Yeah, that could very well be the very first heavy metal song. Very well be. And then I had my brother pick up a copy of, it was Tinseltown Rebellion, the concert. Great. If you ever want to hear a good wide swath of Zappa, that's a good one to start with. It's a great concert album, and it covers a lot of material from his career. I got a good introduction to Zappa through that album. Really did. But I heard that, and my brother, he shook his head like he didn't like it as much at first. He came around to it, but it takes a little bit sometimes for Zappa because he's different. But when I heard Fine Girl and then Easy Meat, and I started laughing, and I heard that breakdown with the horns, that da 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 da. Oh my goodness! I heard that and thought, you gotta be kidding me. And then after that, I was hooked. I heard the rest of the album, Bamboozled by Love. Oh, geez, this guy's nuts. And then I heard his version of Brown Shoes Don't Make It on the album, and I was done. I was a Zappa fan. But the one I chose is We're Only in It for the Money. Now, I know this is an obvious choice. I get that, but this really is a masterpiece. The editing, the collage and the editing he does, the samples of things. I'm talking about early sampling. He samples Eric Clapton saying, "I saw God, I saw God," you know. But, early form of censorship too, because I think the record label Verve wouldn't let him do the I love the cops, they beat the shit out of me line on it. They had to take that out. But it's a very cool and very dark parody of Sgt. Pepper. But not quite as dark. He was chronicling the times when Sgt. Pepper wasn't really being as honest as it paints a naive kind of picture. A little bit naive. I mean, not quite, because Day in the Life is definitely pretty much apocalyptic. But great album. You have to have that in your collection. After that, maybe Hot Rats, or if you want to go for his later stuff, more comedy stuff, Chic Your Booty, or again, Tinseltown Rebellion. Lather's great too, or Leather, however you want to say it. But anyway, gotta have Zappa. And on our way to some heavy metal stuff, early, predating heavy metal, since I mentioned Zappa, Blue Oyster Cult. I have to have Blue Oyster Cult. They're absolutely my favorite bands. They are a killer band. Buck Dharma, Donald Roser, Alan Lanier, who we just lost recently, unfortunately, amazing musician, guitarist, keyboardist, and actually singer. He actually sings on this album that I'm choosing. The Bouchard brothers. I mean, oh my gosh, these guys. And then Eric Bloom. God, what a killer front man. What a killer front man. But I know this is not probably technically their best album, but it's still got some of the best songs on it. Agents of Fortune. I could have picked Secret Treaties. I could have picked their first album. I could have picked Spectres. But this one has some of my favorite songs of all time. And I'm not just talking about Don't Fear the Reaper, which has been played to death, but I can still listen to it. But I'm talking about This Ain't the Summer of Love. I'm talking about True Confessions, which is the Alan Lanier song that he sings on, which, again, Pete Pardo doesn't like too much, in Sea of Tranquility. I think he doesn't like, was a Debbie Denise at the end. And believe it or not, those two songs, True Confessions and Debbie Denise, are two of my favorite songs on this album. I love those two songs. Oh, and Patti Smith, whom I do love Patti Smith. I wish I could have included her. If I did, I would have chosen Easter as an album. Great album. Meat and Potatoes Rock and Roll. Not for everybody. It's not faint of the heart. If you read the song lyrics, the song title, because she balances that, flesh and spirit and, profane and sacred. But anyway, she's on this album, and because she was dating Alan Lanier at the time, and she co-wrote Debbie Denise and Revenge of Vera Gemini. I think she co-wrote those two, and she makes an appearance on background vocals on The Revenge of Vera Gemini, which for some reason they say Gemini. That's always bothered me. I don't know why it's called Gemini, because it talks about the two twins, the two natures of the girl he's with and stuff like it. Face like an angel, but your bone like the devil. But that album has those 5 songs. The first side, This Ain't the Summer of Love, True Confessions, Don't Fear the Reaper, and oh my gosh, E.T.I. One of the heaviest, coolest, most awesome tracks ever cut by any band, E.T.I. If that is not reason alone to put this album on the list, I do not know what is. If you have never heard that song, you must stop this right now, go to YouTube, find that song, listen to it, and then come back, and then we'll talk. Okay, good. So, that song, and then The Revenge of Vera Gemini, an amazing first side. Oh my goodness. Second side, with that great first side, the second side is never going to be as good, unfortunately. But it's damn good. Starting with Sinful Love, then Tattooed Vampire, and then, Morning Final and Tenderloin, which those two kind of sound a little similar. Maybe that's why it kind of grinds a little bit, the last part. And then Debbie Denise, which, again, if you don't like, but I love Debbie Denise. I think it's great. I was that rolling with my band. Come on, man. That's killer, dude. Dollar Roser and all that, man. Man. Love Agents of Fortune. Awesome album. All right. From that, we're going to go through some more landmarks of heavy metal. Deep Purple Machine Head from 1972, year I was born. Deep Purple Machine Head. Everyone talks about Richie Blackmore. Awesome. But what I want to focus on is John freaking Lord, man. This dude, Oh my gosh, I have never ever heard anyone make an organ or Hammond organ, anything like that, sound like freaking dirty and loud as an electric guitar, and he freaking does it over and over again on this album. Wow, man. But seriously, I mean, come on. Not just Smoking the Water, but Space Truckin', Highway Star, Maybe I'm a Leo. I mean, Lazy. This is just killer. You got to have it, period. That's it. From that, you got to go to the Kings of Metal, Black Sabbath. I've always said this is my favorite Sabbath album, the early period, Master of Reality. I can't, Sweet Leaf, come on, man. Into the Void, man, Lord of this World. I talked about this album created stoner metal. This album created, in a way, Christian metal, because the lyrics could be read as a Christian album. So you've got Christian metal, you've got heavy metal, you could say black metal with the Lord of this World, you could say. But I forgot, they also, in a way, start rapcore, because Ozzy's singing, rapping, you could say, on Into the Void. The way he's rapping it is definitely kind of like rapcore. You could technically say they started that too. Either way, you got to have it in your collection. From that, number 12. My number 12, yeah. I love this, man. You got to have David Bowie. I mean, one of the greatest artists of all time. I mean, a man who is so amazing, he turned his own death into a work of art. His pivotal album, Ziggy Stardust. I got to have it on the list. I got to have it. If these are my Desert Island discs, these are probably the ones I choose right now. That album, it's just killer. I mean, from 5 years to Rock and Roll Suicide, and in between you've got Starman, Ziggy Stardust, Lady Stardust, Hang On to Yourself, Freak Out in a Moon Age Daydream, man. I mean, oh my gosh. What can you say? Got to have it. Kudos to David Bowie. God bless you, man. Number 11, I got to have Dylan. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't listened to Dylan for a while. I started listening to his first album, his first folk album, and oh my goodness, that's like the heavy metal of folk albums. If you've never heard Bob Dylan's first folk album, and it's not the one I'm choosing, but you have never heard a folk album like that. And keep this in mind, this is like 1960, 61, something like that. Oh my goodness, his vocal, just him on guitar, vocal, harmonica, wow, amazing. I can see why that came out of nowhere in left field. That was as wild of an album debut as Hendrix's Are You Experienced? And I am not kidding. Go listen to the album. He only has 2 originals on it, but he takes all these old songs, these old folk songs from old, and he modernizes them and sings them in such a way that's incredible. You can see why Dylan's been a master interpreter of his own material, and he redoes his own material all the time in concert. Go listen to all his concert albums. They sound completely different, a lot of them. But anyway, the album I'm choosing is his pivotal. I love double albums. His pivotal double albums, Self Portrait. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. I'm really no. No. It's Blonde on Blonde, of course, which I didn't know. I don't know if he was just playing a little fun game, and maybe it was coincidence. But if stoner thing, Blonde on Blonde. If you take the first 3 letters, the Blonde on Blonde, they spelled Bob. So I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but he was always playing word games and things and stuff with his lyrics. But Blonde on Blonde has Rainy Day Women, and everybody wants to get stoned. Yeah. But that one. So that kicks off the album right off the bat, man. And then you got Pledging My Time, Visions of Joanna, Stuck Inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues Again, Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat. Wow, Absolute Sweet Marie, Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, man, which was written about his wife, I think. But was it like, 14, 15-minute song, something like that, long song. Takes up the whole last side of the double album. You got to have it. Sorry, you got to have it. Great album. Number 10, I have to have The Who. Now, I know my buddy Kevin, I love you, Kevin. He's cool. He said Pete Townsend's a little overrated as a songwriter. I think after Keith Moon died, I don't know, maybe the spark went a little bit. I don't know. Pete Townsend's going to be writing songs till the day he dies. Paul McCartney's going to be playing and writing songs till the day he dies. Prince was playing and writing songs till the day he dies. So was David Bowie. These guys are artists. They're going to keep writing till they die. That's just what they do. Maybe, you can only go to the well so many times. I get that. But at the time, you think about when he was youthful and they started out, he wrote My Generation I Can't Explain, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, The Kids Are Alright, Pictures of Lily. If you get their greatest hits album, Meaty, Beady, Big and Bouncy, well, it's hard to say, but cool to say. You get that album and you look at all these songs, The Seeker, Pinball Wizard, I Can See for Miles. This guy could just, John Fogerty, man, bomba. That's what he could do. Now, after Tommy, he got a little artsy. And I'll freely admit, Tommy is a little bit spotty as a double album. There's some little bits in here and some things that work, some things that don't. And it really progressed more as a stage show as it went along. I still like the movie, even though it's crazy wild. But, it's Ken Russell. What can you expect? But the album I'm choosing is, of course, the pivotal one. I really was tempted because I love the Who Sell Out. I love the concept of it. I love the cover. I love the commercials. It peters out a little bit on side two because they chop too many commercials on one side and not enough on the other, so it kind of is a little uneven. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Who's Next. But because Who's Next, even though it's kind of like the Cliff Notes version of Lifehouse, the double album he was working on, is still an amazing album. I mean, good Lord, Bob O'Reilly, I can still listen to over and over again. Bargain, Loving for Keeping, My Wife, John Entwistle's best song, one of my favorite songs of his. So, Song Is Over. If they put Pure and Easy in at the beginning and then close with maybe Song Is Over, it would have worked. That alone would have, reshuffling these tracks and made it flow a little better, I think would have done better to this album. But Going Mobile, Won't Get Fooled Again. My gosh, that scream at the climax of Won't Get Fooled Again is one of the most amazing moments in rock history. I mean, talking about metal shouters, man. Roger Daltrey can get up there and shout. But this is a band at the peak of their powers. Pete Townsend at the peak of his powers as a songwriter. John Entwistle. I mean, what can you say? I mean, Keith Moon with the tape loops and effects and all that, doing his crazy, Gene Krupa drumming style with a pre-taped loop in the background. That is not easy, and he pulls it off. Kudos to him. He was an amazing drummer. Always will be. But anyway, I have to include that. So, number 9. Oh, we're getting really, really up here now. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix Experience. First album's killer. Second album's killer. But Electric Ladyland's my favorite. I freaking love that album, dude. From the first opening of the backward tapes to the Voodoo Child Slight Return, man, that funky guitar. Oh, guys, that's killer. And the only thing I have to say is, Gypsy Eyes and Burning of the Midnight Lamp. Those are two of my favorite songs of his. But, I mean, Crosstown Traffic, Voodoo Child, the long jam with that, that dive bombing guitar. Oh, man, love that stuff. The sidelong epic, 1983, Merman I Shall Turn to Be, Rainy Day, Dream Away, man. Anyway, best album, great album. Number 8, Physical Graffiti. Zeppelin's best album. You could just toss them up in the air and just pick one with Zeppelin. Look, even at their weakest, look, everybody probably agrees that In Through the Outdoors is the weakest album, aside from Coda, which is, basically scraps. They didn't have much scraps. Seriously, even In Through the Outdoors is pretty killer, man. I mean, In the Evening, Southbound Soiree, I think is really cool. Fool in the Rain, I've heard a million times, but I still love it. And I like Hot Dog. I think Hot Dog is funny. Carousel Umbra, that's another one. Carousel Umbra is one of those John Paul Jones that really grow on you. And now I love that song. It's a killer song. Then you got, of course, All My Love and, I'm Gonna Crawl. I mean, yeah, name me a really bad song on that album. And that's their weakest album. So can you imagine what Physical Graffiti sounds like if you've not heard this? I mean, Kashmir, The Rover, Custard Pie, In My Time of Dying. That, to me, is their best blues song, In My Time of Dying. Everyone says When the Levee Breaks or whether this or that, but no. In My Time of Dying, they take that blues song and, well, you have to hear it. I mean, it's a long song. It's like 11 minutes long, but that's a killer tune. That is when they take blues to heavy metal stratosphere. And then you go into, like, House of the Holy, Trample Underfoot, Kashmir. I'm not exaggerating. I love that riff. That riff could go on for an eternity. It's an amazing riff. and the way they play off of it, and it escalates, and then they de-escalate it, and then they escalate it, and then they play. Oh, that is an amazing track. Amazing track. But anyway, then you got the whole Technicolor stuff on the side 3, Down by the Seaside and Bryan and then 10 Years Gone. Then you got Wonton Song and Sick Again. Like, yeah, whatever. That hell of an album. I mean, I was tempted to get Presents because honestly, personally, I love Presents. I know it gets underrated and kicked around a lot, but I love Presents a lot, especially, Achilles' Last Stand, For Your Life. I think T for One is terribly underrated. Gorgeous song, just meditative song. I love Candy Store Rock. Just great album, but I had to pick this one. I mean, all their albums are great. Come on. What, are you going to go wrong with Zeppelin? Nah. But anyway, number 7, another great double album. Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street, man. This is one that grown on me. This has grown on me a lot. I forgot to mention, too, at the beginning of this. When I went through this list, I didn't want to do multiples of a band. I just wanted to pick one album from one band so I could have as much variety as possible in this. So that's what I did. If I had an album by like the Stones, I only picked one album because I wanted as much variety as possible. So this is my favorite Stones album. It has grown on me so much over the years. I love Aftermath. I love Satanic Majesties because I think that's a quirky, underrated album. Love Sticky Fingers. Great album. Let It Bleed would probably have been my second choice just because I love Country Honk. Live With Me, the title track. I mean, Monkey Man. I mean, good Lord. Yeah, it's Love in Vain. All of it's great. Anyway, Exile on Main Street, a classic double album. The Stones' best album, period. Rocks Off, Rip This Joint, do the Hip Shake Baby. I mean, come on. Oh my gosh. Happy, Tumbling Dice, Sweet Virginia, Loving Cup. Oh my gosh, Loving Cup. Shine a Light. Wow. Turtle and Run, man. What a title. Ventilator Blues. I mean, jeez Louise. This album, I Just Want to See His Face. That kind of desperate, I'm hanging on here. I need to get that. I mean, there's a desperation in this album. I mean, they were living as exiles at the time in France for tax evasion, and they were having, their own issues. That spiritual, that spiritual play into that as well as the relationships and the sexual stuff and the tension and the release and all that, and then that soul search you hear on that song. I Just Want to See His Face. You hear that almost like weird drumming and almost like voodoo kind of stuff, or New Orleans kind of stuff. But you hear that desperation, like Mick Jagger, just from the depths, like crying out that, sometimes you ain't got nobody. Sometimes you just need somebody. It's like, I don't want to walk or talk about Jesus. I just want to see His face. I just need to see it. That's gospel, man. That's soul. That's soul shit right there, man. But then you go into something like, Let It Loose. Oh my gosh, Let It Loose literally is one of those songs that just kills me to hear. That one is just, gosh, it almost brings me to tears. You can hear again that soul searching, that crying. Great album. God bless those guys. Number 6, boy, number 6 here. This one, I had to have Pink Floyd. Okay, I had to have it. But I didn't choose Dark Side of the Moon, and I didn't choose The Wall. I love their early stuff. I think Adam Hart and Mother's underrated. Certainly Metal is still underrated. Their first 2 albums are underrated. Jeez, man. Wish You Were Here, classic. But my favorite album is Animals. This is Pink Floyd's reaction to punk. So this is like a progressive rock, metal, experimental, hardcore album, I guess. I don't know what you call it. I mean, there's 3 main songs and 1 ballad, so there's only 4 songs in it. You've got Pigs on the Wing, which bookends the album, and then you just got David Gilmour letting loose. This is a ferocious album. This is a hardcore album. This is a graphic album. It's not an easy album to take. It's a very violent and dark album, brooding. Even the artwork in this menacing. It looks like something from like a horror film or something. It's creepy. And then you have them categorizing people into dogs and sheep and pigs, like the Orwellian kind of thing, and like Animal Farm, which is also creepy, and especially with everything going on right now with the tyrants that are running everything. This is a very dark album, but it is a pounding album. I can't emphasize enough. This is about the closest Pink Floyd ever got to heavy metal. This is where Tool took their sound a little bit, I think. Dogs is an amazing showcase. 17 minutes of just pure freaking amazement. Sheep is probably one of my favorite numbers of them, but it's also the most darkest and kind of disturbing because if you read the lyrics and they rewrite the 23rd Psalm in a very creepy way, that's really, but it's a dark album, and the pounding riff at the end of that, I love that riff that David Gilmour, and then you got Roger Waters just don 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 don. I mean, wow, great album, my favorite album. All right, so we're at number 5, totally opposite of that darkness. Stevie Wonder's "Songs in the Key of Life." I think from 1976. Yep, 1976. My dad or someone had this. I don't know where we got it, but we only had half this album on 8-track, and it was the second half where you have "Isn't She Lovely" and "I Am Singing" and "A Black Man," "As," "Another Star," "Saturn," "Ebony Eyes," "Easygoing Evening," "All Day Sucker." "All Day Sucker." It's a funky one. I love that number. But that album, I didn't hear the first album. I didn't hear "So Duke." I didn't hear "I Wish." I didn't hear any of those stuff or "Past in Paradise." So when I got the whole album, when I first started collecting records, it was one of the first albums I went to look for at the record convention because I was blown away by it. I was listening to it on headphones. My dad had the old 70s headphones, and listening to it on this 8-track player, and I was in another world, a panoramic world of just gorgeous melodies and sounds and colors. It was almost like you're taking a trip inside Stevie Wonder's head. It was so cool, and I loved it, and the production was amazing, the vocaling. So when I got the whole album and I heard it, I was like, I mean, this album has changed people's lives, and I'm not joking. I really do think that this album was the reason why Stevie Wonder was put on this earth. Number 4, here's another one. Van Morrison, "Astral Weeks." 1968, he came out with that. After leaving them, he joined the Bang record company label, released some singles. "Brown Eyed Girl's" a big hit. When he left, he joined Warner Brothers. This was the first time released. A song cycle of eight tracks. There's only 8 tracks on this, and everyone is perfectly etched. They recorded this in, I think, like 2 days, and the musicians were just following along, basically. And then they added the orchestral stuff and things a little bit later. A swirling masterpiece, and probably lyrically, one of the greatest albums ever written. You think of Yeats, and you think of these great poets, and Van Morrison is writing the stuff where it celebrates the temporal and the spiritual at the same time. I mean, on Cypress Avenue, this great epiphany he sees this girl coming up the road, and he's in love with her, and then the sun shines right behind her like an aura or something, shining right on her. He said, "You came down the street, the sun shone." That spiritual and the temporal together. What an amazing moment. But you go on, you got "Ballerina," another great song. "Slim Slow Slider," a sad song about a girl that was hooked on heroin, I think it was. You've got "The Way Lovers Do," "Madame George," a character portrait of people he knew in college, I think it was, compiled into this one party. "Beside You," which is a rewrite of an earlier track he did on the Bang label. And then Cypress Avenue. Oh my gosh. I mean, the title track. This is one of the greatest songs of all time. And I'm not saying that lightly, but his vocal performance is extraordinary. His lyrics are extraordinary. Richard Davis, the great jazz bassist, this is one of the greatest bass performances of his career on this album. Fantastic album. Unbelievable. You got to have it. I don't know what else to say. Number 3, Pet Sounds, Beach Boys. The album that influenced Paul McCartney, that influenced Rubber Soul, that influenced Revolver. They went back and forth a little bit, the Beatles and the Beach Boys, a little friendly competition. This album is so gorgeous. Again, you don't use that term loosely. I don't. This is a gorgeous album. The orchestra score is amazing. He created every single bit of this. He created the entire soundscape. You can play this with a score. You could actually play this entire album with an orchestra. It's so in-depth and beautiful. The vocal harmonies he reaches with these guys, his brothers, and Mike Love, his cousin, everything. There's still people analyzing these songs because they're so advanced and so intricate in their arrangements and how he wrote these. I don't know how he did it. Brian Wilson is a genius. There's no doubt about it. It is sad that he had so many problems, but geniuses, unfortunately, a lot of times do. A sad case in point, Robin Williams, a genius. But, everyone has their demons, unfortunately. Brian Wilson, thank God he got himself together and was able to continue his career. despite terrible things that happened, including Dennis Wilson dying and Carl Wilson passing away and all that. A lot of bad things happened to him, but they still go on, and that they still make great music. God bless him. That's all I can say. He's a genius. God has really touched his life, and in return, touches ours, which is that's what genius and talent does. Number two, my number two. If I had to pick a Beatle album, and the Beatles is my number two, I toyed with doing the White Album. I toyed with doing Sgt. Pepper. A lot of people think Sgt. Pepper is overrated. I think it's underrated. Within You, Without You it's one of my favorite George Harrison songs, and the rest of the album is amazing. But I had to pick Revolver. Revolver is my favorite Beatle album. It has my favorite George Harrison track, and it's not Taxman. I love You Too, but it's I want to tell you, that song kills me every time I hear it. The Eastern intonations of the vocalese that they do with that, the guitar lick, that slangy, almost like 70s guitar lick, man. Like, nobody says anything about this track. Oh my gosh. The lyrics, early George Harrison, for a while, he was writing hard-ass Bob Dylan put-down kind of lyrics, which is really cool to hear in the light of some of the kind of like cheery, kind of stuff that sometimes Paul McCartney does, the sugary stuff. And John Lennon kind of almost caught up with him, because George was writing some pretty hard-ass lyrics at the time. Like, Don't Bother Me, Taxman, which is cynical. And then he was writing this song, which is like a really kind of cynical take on a relationship. But he had hard-ass lyrics, and he was great when he does that. Love that song. But that's just one song. When you've got Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, Love You Too, Here, There, and Everywhere. Oh my goodness. She Said, which was about, I think, was it Peter Fonda? I think he had done an acid trip and said he knows what it's like to be dead. Then you got, And Your Bird Can Sing, that guitar. And I'm talking about the British edition. Now, the American edition kind of sucked because the 3 Lennon numbers were taken out. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But, and it also has For No One and, oh my goodness, Tomorrow Never Knows. What can I say? My favorite Beatles album of all time is what it is. And my number one has always been number one ever since I heard it. The Kinks are my favorite group of all time. I know when I did the last soap opera review, I said when I first heard I'm on an Island from the Live Kinks, that just did it for me. After I heard that track and we really started exploring their catalog, I was blown away, especially when I got to Face, because that cover was killer. Dandy I knew, Sunday Afternoon I'd heard on a little compilation tape cassette thing that I heard that I bought cheap at, I think, Target or something years ago. But when I heard Face and it opened with the ring of a telephone, I thought, and I perked up, and Party Line came on. And after Party Line, Rosie, Won't You Please Come Home? And then it just went boom and boom. And by the time of Rainy Day in June, House in the Country, and then by the time we get to Most Exclusive Residence for Sale, I'm sitting there thinking, this is one of the best albums I've ever heard. And it's a concept album, an early concept album from him, which details the life of a guy who, makes money, he loses it all, drunkenness and cruelty and all that, and he's left at, the taxman takes it away and all that stuff. It is kind of a concept album in a way. Probably one of the earliest concept albums too. But this is my favorite album of all time because the production is really cool for an early 60s production. The cover art is classic. It's iconic. And the songwriting, Ray Davies is starting to hit a peak. And this album is a full-blown peaker right here. Holiday in Waikiki is hilarious. Fancy has that Eastern drone, just like the George Harrison one that we were talking about. Love You Too from Revolver. This does too. Really neat sound. Little Miss Queen of Darkness, You're Looking Fine, great riff rocker, early riff rocker. I'll Remember, great closer, perfect closer for that. Nice little rockin' closer. Too Much on My Mind. Oh my gosh, poor Ray Davies. I think he had a breakdown a bit because of the things going on, touring and all that stuff like that. And I think he was having marital troubles, things or something. But he kind of had a bit of a breakdown, had to take a break, and you can tell that reflectiveness here. He's one of my favorite songwriters of all time. I can't say enough about him. God bless him. But there it is. There's a lot of stuff I could have done. I know I could have had. I didn't have room for CCR, Creedence. I didn't have room for Big Brother and the Holding Company, Janis Joplin. There's stuff from the 80s. Elvis Costello's Imperial Bedroom I love. Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, Ricky Lee Jones' Flying Cowboys, which I think is a fantastic album. She's incredible. There's so much music out there, and so many groups I couldn't choose. Velvet Underground's Loaded, their first album, and all that. But as it is, I named a few things here that I could have chosen. But those are my 25 that I came up with off the bat, and that's what I'm sticking with for this moment in time. Of course, as we go doing this and I do more and more reviews, we'll see how that goes. I'll do an update maybe later on. But let me know what your favorite albums are. Please, I really love to know. What do you think of my choices? They cool? You like them or just But let me know what you think. Comment in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. But take care, guys. Love each other. Be good to each other. Love and kindness go a long way, more so than money and politics. Let's put it that way. And check out my buddy David Darker's channel. We have great reactions. Especially if you're a metalhead, you're going to love some of that stuff. But we do all kinds of stuff. It's not just metal, but it's really interesting stuff. Really cool. But take care, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment. Take care. God bless.